The Fantastic Four, Marvel's first family, Marvel's Incredibles. It's been 6 years since the four arrived back home, and a lot has happened. Marvel blew its audience capital on 9 pieces of mediocrity and 15 pieces of homework, TV shows. And now they're finally here. And I'm perplexed, to say the least. As Marvel slowly built to first steps, they did something I never thought a company would do. And that's completely destroy any hype or goodwill for these characters years before they got their own movie. 3 years ago, they let Reed Richards, the world's smartest man and leader of the Fantastic Four, go out like a complete and let this happen to Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch. And this happened last year. Now, we've already endured 3 trash movies and 1 dope teaser trailer. But now that Marvel has them back, this is what they want their audience to remember? Now, maybe it never occurred to them like that hoodie ad that H&M put out. But the Fantastic Four have always been a tough nut to crack for Hollywood, as they're deceptively simple and earnest characters with a lot of heart. They're a family, plain and simple. And if you make that element great, then you've got a decent chance of making a good movie. But in these modern times of pessimism, irony, cynicism, and girl bosses, they keep trying to force that square peg into that circle-shaped space. And despite the cool 60s aesthetic, they're giving us a femme Silver Surfer that, until this year, had only appeared in half an issue of 1 comic book. And of course, we still had the rumors that they're still going for the girl boss angle with our girl Sue. Now, Sue Storm undoubtedly is an absolute boss of a character. But I don't think that's the reason, if the rumors are true, for why they picked her to be the focal point of all the marketing, given Marvel's current track record. Luckily, the bar for a good Fantastic Four movie is in hell. So hopefully they can, at the very least, take their first steps over that. This is a very, very, very decent Fantastic Four movie. And the whole retro 60s vibe was a refreshing reprieve from those bland, boring backdrops we've been getting lately. The movie, as a complete experience, is quickly paced. A little too quickly, if you ask me. But on paper, this movie does most of it right. However, for some reason, it left me feeling empty. But let's talk about that later. First, we must discuss the most surprising thing to me about this movie was the four themselves. Their chemistry is excellent. The actors really nailed the feeling of a real superhero family that's been at it for years. And Pedro Pascal shocked me with a relatively faithful adaptation of Marvel's biggest brain. He was barely allowed to speak in the marketing, so I was worried that all we were going to get was a sad, somber MCU version of J. Robert Oppenheimer. Luckily, however, that was not the case. Now, is he the perfect Reed Richards? No. I would have preferred a Ty Burrell, a Penn Badgley, or some super talented unknown. But Pedro's what we got, and Pedro gave us a good enough portrayal, minus the mustache. The 3 other members were a mixed bag. Mind you, their performances were all great, especially Vanessa Kirby. She plays Sue with this soft but firm matriarchal energy that I don't think Jessica or Kate were allowed or able to portray.
Victor, you always thought you were a god. Now back off.
Susan, let's not fight.
No, let's.
She was the highest paid actor in this movie.
It's odd to think that it took Marvel 37 movies to do a superhero that is also a mom. And before you put it in the comments, no, Pepper doesn't count, and neither does Wanda, for obvious reasons. But when it came to the Human Torch and the Thing, I was perplexed. Ben Grimm, who's portrayed by Ebon Moss, was perfect in the role, but given very little story. There's this Jewish schoolteacher played by Natasha Lyonne that he has a possible thing with. But it's given so little screen time that it left me with paradoxical feelings. The feeling that I was given too much story to ignore, but not enough to be fulfilling. Johnny Storm, on the other hand, has a different problem, and it's that he's way too competent. When you think of Johnny, the words that come to mind would include impulsive, cocky, immature, heart of gold. Now, if you were to tell me that Johnny would rather spend his time researching an alien language than hit on hot women, I would say,
Get the f*** out of here. Get the f*** out of here.
And for all that,
I get it. Johnny loves space. Johnny loves women.
Johnny tries to rizz up precisely one woman, and she's not even human. In fact, I don't even think Johnny really talks to anyone outside of his family. This should be second or third movie Johnny, not first movie Johnny.
Trouble is my middle name.
Oh, you're hot.
Why, thank you, so are you. And I'm not afraid to cry.
No, I mean, you feel a little feverish.
Well, I've never felt better in my life. My God, you smell good. Listen, when do you get off work?
4, but
Tell you what, you meet me at 4:01 at the top of the mountain. I'll give you a minute to freshen up. This is yours. Oh, that's mine. Nurses. I'm a hustler, baby.
First movie Johnny needs flaws. First movie Johnny needs some space to grow. First movie Johnny needs, well, an arc, which is pretty much something all 4 characters are lacking. And because there are no character arcs, it's hard to pin down a theme for this story other than
Family.
the story as a whole was fine. It's basically a better version of Rise of the Silver Surfer with a better Galactus and a worse Silver Surfer, with a utilitarian conundrum thrown in for good measure. One pure innocent life for the sake of all human life. A scenario that should have pitted the 4 against the entire world. But it didn't. Sure, the angry mob is willing to sacrifice a baby at first, but then Sue gives this impassioned speech and everyone's just cool with potential planetary annihilation. There's this movie Greenland, which in my opinion is the best disaster movie ever made, and it follows this family as they try to get to a special bunker in Greenland before a meteor hits the Earth. The way this movie depicts a worldwide panic is done to absolute perfection. Some people are looting, some people are destroying stuff, and some people are trying to get to Greenland despite not being on a special list that consists of people most needed to rebuild society after the meteor hits. But there are so many moments where people are being kind or sacrificial for each other despite the inevitable. Now, that being said, I'm not asking for the Last of Us levels of bleakness, but to have all of humanity just trash the FF with very little fuss just feels like the writers didn't want to deal with the messiness of humanity on pretty much any level. I really think we've taken for granted all the work Sam Raimi put into giving his New York a personality. Some hate him.
He stinks, and I don't like him.
Others like him.
Guy with 8 hands. Sounds hot.
He has those tights and that tight little...
And most, when the chips are down, will step up to defend him. However, when the Fantastic Four's New Yorkers are given time to speak...
Thank you, Fantastic Four. Thank you.
Thank you, Fantastic Four.
And I love you, random citizen.
On another note, they also just cut and pasted the Surfer's arc from the original movie, but decided to remove all that human bonding time that, made the Surfer change his mind in the first place. I feel like I was watching The Force Awakens all over again. I waited so long to finally get a new story with these characters, and they ended up just copying the old. Now, don't get me wrong. This movie is still definitely better as a whole. The family element is its strongest attribute, and like I said earlier, if you nail that, then you'll at least have a decent movie. But that's also the problem, because decent shouldn't be the word used to describe a family of superheroes that call themselves fantastic, a word I wish I could use to describe. There is an art to creating memorable action. The White House attack in X2, the train fight in Spider-Man 2, and every action scene in The Incredibles. All of these came out at least 20 years ago, and we're still talking about them now. That being said, if you've seen the trailer for First Steps, then you've seen at least 50% of the action in this movie. There were no standout moments, everything is very functional, with no flash. Sue puts up shields and moves heavy objects. Johnny looks cool when he does his thing, but it's not as cool as the OG Torch action. Ben naturally gets his
It's clobbering time.
but it lands with all the gravitas of a contractual obligation. There's no significant reason why he says it, other than that Johnny just keeps bugging him about it.
What time is it, Ben?
No.
What time is it, Ben?
No, Johnny.
And if you're waiting for that scene that's gonna finally put some respect on Reed Richards' name, like they did with my boy Scott Summers, it's not in this movie. While he does do a lot of swinging, climbing, and reaching for things, his power display is very basic. I was hoping director Matt Shakman would take some cues from that amazing chase scene in The Incredibles 2, but I think that they were so afraid of making Reed look goofy that they just abandoned any and all attempts at making him do almost anything, which is disappointing, but it makes sense. They're trying to get the Fantastic Four back on track, and bold decisions are for brands currently in good standing. That being said, Reed Richards needs to be cool, and while First Steps gave us a good Reed Richards, he wasn't an impressive one. In the comics, Reed Richards can stretch up to 1,500 feet, but in this movie, maybe 100? I point this fact out not to be a comic nerd, although I very much am. I point this out because Reed Richards is the only member of the four who isn't allowed to do something awesome. Johnny gets to save an entire power plant by absorbing all the fire, Ben saves this ship in a very familiar way, and Sue literally pushes Galactus in his entirety by herself. Oh yeah, and Reed gets to beat up an orangutan.
Lame.
Now let's talk about the ending power struggle between Sue and Galactus for a moment. I loved that she was all juiced up on Mama Bear energy and that it mirrored the scene of her giving birth. Whoever had the idea of having her save the world by pushing out a giant with the same determination it took to push out a baby?
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
My problem with this whole thing is that her full capabilities and the consequences thereof needed to be seated better. Having her be so powerful that she can pretty much solve the problem by herself felt like a deus ex machina. That being said, they did have her die to explain why she generally never uses that much power, but we all knew she wasn't going to be killed off in her first movie. But to end things on a positive note, the best scene is probably the opening montage. It's quick, but beautifully executed, showing off how well-oiled the four are as a team. And that homage to the first issue left me as a comic fan feeling properly serviced. Now, despite all the nitpicking, Fantastic Four First Steps is a pleasant watch. The acting was great, the production design was excellent, and the action was serviceable. But the story was a bit safe. That being said, there's clearly a deeper movie here that was cut to ribbons and left on the editing floor. That whole John Malkovich story that was teased in the trailer? Gone. Ben Grimm's entire plotline? Gone. Maybe there's a great director's cut out there, but I'm pretty sure we're not going to get it, as Marvel doesn't really have a fan base as dedicated and level as Zack. Now, I'm not really looking forward to Avengers Doomsday, but maybe, just maybe, that movie will allow the four to actually be fantastic. Also, Sue and Reed are horrible parents for taking their unborn miracle child into space.